Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you could join me here at Chilling Lullabies tonight. My goal is simple, to help you relax, unwind, and drift away. Before we settle in, if you enjoy the stories I share, it truly helps more than you know. So please leave a comment below. It makes our community feel so much more connected. Just a quick note. There are a few short ads in the first 15 minutes to support this. I pour my heart into finding and crafting these tales. I hope you'll give this one a chance. Story 1. Chloe had learned to navigate her apartment by the quality of silence. 2 years of blindness had taught her this, how to read a room by what sound did not do. So when Mrs. Schultz knocked that Thursday morning, Chloe knew from her neighbor's breathing that something had changed. The old woman was excited or nervous, or both. "Letter from the hospital, Mrs. Schultz said, and Chloe heard. Expensive paper rustling, the kind hospitals use for important correspondence. Dear Miss Hartley, the sense that accepting this gift 2 years since the darkroom accident. Since the acetic acid bottle shattered and she'd reached toward the sound, knocking chemicals across her face. 2 years of carrying the smell of that moment, of living with permanent darkness. But even as Mrs. Schultz continued reading about procedures and timelines, something tightened in Chloe's chest. It wasn't hope. She'd learned to distrust that. It would cost her something she couldn't yet name. She should have listened. Doctor. Reeves removed the bandages 5 days after surgery. Before the procedure, Chloe had asked about the donor, wanting to know something, anything, to properly thank them, even in death. The nurse, Diane, had looked uncomfortable. We can't share identifying information, but she'd glanced at Dr. Reeves, who was looking at his tablet. She was young, your age, and she wanted to help people. That's all I can say. Young, female, recent. It wasn't much, but it was something. Now, Doctor. Reeves instructed, keep your eyes closed. When I tell you, open them slowly. The last gauze fell away. Air touched her eyelids, cool and strange. Now, she opened her eyes. The world rushed in. Color. Reeves's face, see her own hands, see tears catching the light as they fell. How do you feel? I can see everything, but behind Doctor, there was a shadow. Not cast by anything in the room, but existing, independently, pulsing with its own rhythm. She blinked. It was gone. Then she heard it, a high, thin note, like feedback from a distant microphone, coming from somewhere very far away or very deep inside her skull. Any discomfort? Blurring? No, she lied. Everything's clear. She didn't mention the shadow. Didn't mention the sound. The first week was intoxicating. Chloe walked through the city, drinking in every detail. Light through fire, escapes, new leaves in Washington Square, strangers' faces. Her camera bag hung from her shoulder. The same battered Leica she'd been afraid to touch during her blindness. She spent hours photographing tenement buildings on the Lower East Side rust-on-fire escapes. Brick worn smooth by weather. The images she'd always loved, decay and beauty intertwined. It was while shooting a condemned building on Delancey Street that she saw her first one clearly. The light was failing, at that magic our photographers live for. She was adjusting her aperture when movement caught her eye. A figure in a fourth-floor window, perfectly still, watching her. It was too rigid, too patient. Stillness of an object, not a living thing. The high-pitched sound returned, louder, more insistent, like metal scraping metal in some vast, echoing space. Chloe pressed her palm against her ear, but the sound didn't muffle. It was inside her head. And she was cold. impossibly cold, though the evening was warm and humid. Her breath fogged. Goosebumps raced up her arms. She raised her camera and focused. Through the viewfinder, the figure became clearer. It wasn't quite human. The proportions were right, but the substance was wrong, translucent, grayish. Its face was a hollow darkness, punctuated. As she watched, it opened what might have been a mouth. The gesture was slow, deliberate, the jaw dropping in a smooth, mechanical arc. The mouth stretched wider than it should. A perfect circle of darkness. The sound in her head spiked. Chloe gasped and dropped the camera. When she looked up, the figure was gone. The cold, her breath no longer fogged. The sound diminished to a faint whine, like tinnitus. Stress, she decided. Adjustment. Doctor. Reeves had warned me about visual disturbances. Understandable, after a corneal transplant. Still, as I packed my camera and walked home, the familiar streets suddenly felt less safe. It was like seeing everything for the first time, but through a darker lens. That night I dreamed of. The dark room, that moment right before everything changed. But in the dream, when the doctors told me I would never see again, I didn't feel despair. I felt relief. I woke up in darkness. I knew this even before opening my eyes. I could feel it. A deep, unnatural cold had seeped into the room. And with it, a smell that definitely wasn't there before. It was a terrible chemical, sterile scent layered underneath something else. Dust and rust, the decay of abandoned places. The kind of smell that clings to buildings marked for demolition. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Slowly, I forced my eyes open, and there it was. A figure standing at the foot of my bed. It was more solid than the shadows I'd glimpsed before, more defined. I could almost make out features a hollow where a nose should be. Depressions for eye sockets, the sharp line of it. It stood perfectly still, hands at its sides, just watching me with its complete absence of eyes. A sound started, a steady, unnerving drone. It wasn't loud, it wasn't soft. It was just there. Constant. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was frozen, utterly paralyzed. My rational mind was screaming that this couldn't be real, that it was a trick of my healing eyes. But every instinct in my body knew it was. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, patient as stone, as if it had all the time in the world. After what felt like an eternity, I squeezed my eyes shut when I finally dared to open. But the cold remained. The smell remained. The sound remained. I didn't sleep again that night. The next day, Dr. Reeves told me my eyes were healing perfectly. When I finally worked up the nerve to mention the shadows, the sounds, the cold, the smells, he just nodded with this practiced, infuriating sympathy. Synesthesia-like phenomena aren't uncommon after extended blindness. His voice calm and reassuring. Your brain is just relearning sensory integration. These experiences should resolve on their own within a few months. They don't feel like phantoms, I insisted. My voice trembled. He didn't listen. I'm referring you to Dr. Brennan. Psychological adaptation is just as important as physical healing. Psychological. It was such a polite, clinical way of calling me crazy. The shadows followed me home on the subway. There were dozens of them, drifting through the crowded platform like wisps of smoke. Of course, no one else seemed to notice. Only I could see them weaving between the commuters, their forms flickering in and out of existence. Only I could hear the drone growing louder, becoming a discordant chorus of metallic screeching. Only I could feel the temperature drop, my skin prickling in the overheated subway car. One figure, more substantial than the others. lingered beside a man in a business suit who had dozed off. It stood so close to him, I could see its shifting darkness with horrifying clarity. The hollow eye sockets, the depression where a mouth should be. It slowly tilted its head, mimicking the sleeping man's posture, but it was all wrong. The movement was too slow, too mechanical, entirely inhuman. Then it reached out. It placed what might have been a hand on the man's shoulder. The man shuddered in his sleep, and then the figure looked at me. Despite having no eyes, I felt its gaze. It was a physical sensation. Like insects crawling across my corneas, like a terrible pressure building behind my eyes. The drone in my ears escalated into a piercing shriek. I tore my gaze away, staring at my feet, refusing to look up until the train screeched to a halt at my stop. The moment the doors opened, I bolted out and didn't stop running until I was inside my apartment. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick. Alone and terrified, I turned to the only place I could think of, the internet. I researched obsessively for hours. Hallucinations after, visual distortions, light sensitivity, floaters. But there was nothing about shadows with hollow faces. Nothing about sounds or cold or the smell of decay. On a whim, I changed my search. Seeing ghosts after surgery, and that's when I found it. Buried deep in a forum, a single article that mentioned a controversial theory, cellular memory. The idea that donated organs could carry the memories, the habits, and maybe even the traumas of their donors. My blood ran cold. I thought about the transplant, about the piece of a stranger that was now a part of me. What had they seen? And more importantly, what had seen them? The shadowy figure from my bedroom, its patient, empty gaze. Was it here for me? Or was it looking for someone else? The thought was a sliver of ice in my heart. I wasn't just healing, I was becoming haunted. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you've ever had an experience you just can't explain, let me know in the comments below. And if you want more stories that explore the shadows, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Stay safe out there.